And then as for moving forward, Christy, we're good, right? We can hit the road. Okay, thank you. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Holly Hernandez. I am the Assistant Director for Employer Relations at URI in the Career Center. And we are working on this project this week of our engineering and tech follow-up week, if you will, from our fall event that maybe some of you were able to attend. And kind of looking at what is happening this spring in the world around us that you are all heading out into. So today we want to thank our panelists for being here, and our conversation today will kind of be meant to highlight some of the careers of our panelists specifically, as well as some advice around how to launch your career at this time, and give us a little bit of a perspective on what it takes to go from college to career. And those insights to industry that are so helpful. And so our team today joining us is Tammy Lesso, who's around in the background, Academic Affairs Coordinator from the College of Engineering. Myself, Lisa Kwasmanen, our Career Education Specialist that I'm sure many of you have met with before. And Christy Embrecht-Searles, I always mess it up, Christy, I say it thousands of times a day, sorry. Who is our marketing and events coordinator at the Career Center. So Christy and I and Lisa and Tammy are thrilled to have with us today our experts in the field. Our first guest today is Lauren Cotnor from Citizens. Lauren is our campus and diversity recruiter. I think of you as a jack of all trades, Lauren. So forgive me if I ask you questions that are outside of your realm. We'll keep it to what we know you know.
Thank you. I'm happy
And
to do
Mike,
whatever I can.
thank you. And Michael Twardowski is our guest today from Delsys, lead research systems engineer and alumni. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you for
And
having me. So,
Mr. Dave Durfee, the CEO and chief scientist at Bay Computer Associates. Dave also, hello, Dave, thank you for being here. Also alum, Dave, correct?
No, my wife is
No
an
way.
alumnus of URI.
Okay, well, we did get you because now you're teaching. So there you go. That's where we got you. Yeah, so thank you. Students, throughout this presentation or this conversations, if you have any questions or things that you'd like to ask our panelists, we will have a dedicated time at the end for Q&A. But if you're feeling like you want to jot it down in the chat while we're speaking, go right ahead. Lisa's going to be on the lookout for those questions throughout the panel. So without further ado, we'll get you started. I'm sorry. There's no more slides, right, Christy? Where I'm not waiting for anything. Okay, perfect. Well, let's start then by just talking a little bit about the industry that we're heading into, the technology and innovation realm. And I'm wondering if maybe, Michael, you could start us off and tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of an engineer is like at Delsys.
sure, absolutely. I can start that off. So you can kind of see from the little icon that we have up here that Delsys designs wearable sensors for movement sciences. And we actually research, design, and manufacture all of these in our facility in Natick. So we have a pretty multidisciplinary team that comprises of hardware, software, and scientists that really feed into all of these. So the day in the life of what engineering looks like here can vary a little bit between teams. You have a commercial group and kind of a more research-centric group that I'm a part of. But I would say your typical team, everyone would kind of have these like small team approaches that you'd be working towards either a product or some research goal. And you would define, even as entry-level engineers, you'd come in and kind of help define and craft what your goals are for those projects. And you would work within your small teams and independently to continually kind of push these forward. And on the commercial group, you kind of have sort of not necessarily shorter term goals, but you have things that are going to make it to market a lot sooner, where research may take a little bit longer perspective, and you may be working on things that may not see or become to actualization for many years. I've been working on I would say a project that we have internally. I mean, it's been around for a couple decades. It's something we honestly continuously refine, and there's things that we translate and spin off to the commercial group. Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a lot of variety across there, and it's honestly pretty exciting. So
Thank you. And I'm going to pass the question over to you, Dave, because you're right next to Michael on my screen.
Okay.
What's a day in the life at Bay Computer Associates look like?
Well, I remember, I think a lot of graduating students may not realize that there's lots of different kinds of engineers. And, you could be an application sales sort of engineer where you help customers figure out what they might need to get their projects done. You could be a manufacturing engineer. You could be a test engineer. You could be a support engineer that supports products once they're in the field and there's customer complaints. The two kinds of engineers that we have here are design research engineers, kind of like what Michael was talking about, and also technical engineering managers, which is another aspect of engineering. And basically, we do a lot of what they teach you in school, which is provide you with a problem and solve the problem. So sometimes we have to figure out what the problem is before we solve it. And a lot of times we'll have a customer come with just an idea on the back of a napkin and say, I need a product that does this. And we start from basically nothing and create a product here. So we're design and research engineers here at Bay Computer.
Very interesting. I have a feeling I'm going to learn a lot today. And Lauren, we'll pass it over to you. How about at Citizens? What is a general an overview maybe of the opportunities for entry level?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So here at Citizens, we actually have a number of different opportunities that folks can enter into within technology and data. And so I can give you some insight into the types of roles we have available and sort of what the general nature of that work would be. So as it relates to software engineering, we are actually undergoing a rather significant digital transformation that we announced about 2 years ago now. And the goal is to completely modernize technology across Citizens, both as it relates to how we're servicing our customers and the applications and tools they're using, as well as transformation around our environment, how we access and store data in the cloud, as well as network security and desktop as well. So there's a lot going on. And so in terms of a couple profiles I would be happy to highlight, one would be within software engineering. So we're looking for engineers in our college program at essentially all areas of software engineering. So we're looking for folks interested in front end or back end specifically. We're looking for full stack engineers. We're looking for data engineers. So in terms of full stack engineering, I can share a little bit about some projects we currently work on, or that the new hires currently work on. So one of those projects would be around using machine learning and AI to be able to develop some tools that will make it easier for prospective customers to interact with us and explore our services. So for example, we're developing a tool that is going to be able to extract data from a driver's license or another personal identification document that will then be able to be transferred directly into a loan application, for example. So making the process of completing a loan application a little bit easier, less hassle-free. So there's a lot of projects like that going on within our team. In terms of some other projects, we also are working directly on a lot of web and mobile application development. So we have a number of award-winning mobile applications. And so we're looking to constantly enhance what we're offering, deliver better speed to market. And so there definitely is a focus on that. And then finally, within data, as you can imagine in an environment like a bank, it's a big data environment here. And so there's constantly tons of data being collected that we need to use to be able to draw insights and to further refine a strategy. And so one area is currently working within our consumer bank to be able to take, for example, consumer data, consumer behavior data, and be able to use that to better determine how we can either enhance our current services or even potentially remove certain services that aren't doing as well. So for example, we're looking at access to branches, particularly as a result of the pandemic. We've seen that drop quite a bit, but it was dropping even prior to that. So being able to look at how many folks are logging into online banking, the types of activities they're engaging in, what they prefer, and then being able to, draw insights from that data in terms of how we can better enhance the experience of the customer using online banking, and where we may even need to shift the services we're offering on site at local branches. So being diligent, or being deliberate rather, about what we're offering at certain branches, and where we can sort of kind of enhance our current online and or digital services. And those are all things that our current technology development program cohort are working on.
Wow, thank you, Lauren. That is a lot. You've got a lot going on. And I want to be the first one to know when that whole process of the loan applications is easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move to thinking a little bit about the transition between school and going out into the world of work, particularly in the times of a pandemic. I know we're all hoping that we're almost to the end of this, but Dave, could I ask you, can you give us any advice or best practices coming from this transition, going into this transition?
Well, I realized that maybe I misspoke, because I told the students that they're being trained. What they're being trained to do is pretty much what a design or research engineer does. And that's not true for all engineering positions in the world. But what I didn't mean to say that work is like school. For those of you that felt like me, I didn't find engineering school fun or exciting. They do a better job of that now than the dark ages when I went to school, but I love my job. Work is much different than school. And in my particular case, I've designed hundreds of products over my career, most of them medical. And I really enjoy the challenge of designing them. And I like the idea that the things I'm designing might actually be helping people, through these medical products. But as far as the transition, I would say two things. One is, as far as getting a job, you're doing the right thing to accept the help that the university is giving. I've had some students be uncomfortable about asking alumni or friends of your family to help open doors for you, because I don't know why you feel uncomfortable doing that. You should throw all those feelings away and feel very comfortable about asking alumni of URI and friends and family, because they're all willing to help. It may be uncomfortable to ask for help, but you really should do that. And it's not like anybody's giving you anything. They're opening a crack in the door, and your abilities and your transcript and your resume are what going to land you that job. It's not that those people did it for you. So that's one thing about actually getting a job. The other thing I would tell you is engineering is a double-edged sword, in the sense that it requires a great deal of effort in staying current and to learn how to be an engineer. I think if you're like me, most of you probably feel uncomfortable in the sense that you don't feel like you could actually design a product upon graduation. And I'm here to tell you, yeah, you're right. You probably can't design a product upon graduation. That'll take a couple more years of being an apprentice, so to speak, before you feel comfortable, or before people will give you that opportunity. So as a result, I'm saying you have to do, even though you're graduating and you're kind of tired of school, you got to do continuing education if you want to further your career and be very good as an engineer. And it's not something that you can learn a bunch of stuff and then turn your brain off. So the good news is I guess the bad news is you're always going to have to continue to educate yourself, probably a lot of it on your own time. But the good news is I'm an old guy. I've been doing this for over 40 years, never been bored a day in my life.
Dave, I love your candor. Thank you. We really need that, and we need those realistic expectations. So thank you. And networking is never bad, and you're already doing it. You're doing it today. So, Michael, do you have anything to add from your perspective as an alumni?
Sure, absolutely. I think the biggest thing I would say that would help people is just look for people that are willing to invest in you, or even help you. I mean, you can look on this call, look at all of us here that are really just, we want to give back, we want to help. Look for people like that. When you're looking for jobs, ultimately it isn't always what you're doing, but it's the people that you're around that could really have a big difference in your trajectory for your career. And if you could find a group that is willing to invest and mentor and grow engineers, that's going to make a huge impact on what you're able to do and where you're able to go. And we're out there. There's a lot, I would say by default, a lot of people just, they want to help new engineers. They want to grow them. I mean, maybe that's all not purely altruistic in every place, but they do exist. The second thing I would say is use your engineering skill sets you have now to apply that to your job search. You know, deep dive into job positions, see what they're actually looking for. And if you're not at the point of looking for jobs yet, maybe you're earlier in your academic career, look to see what the jobs you want now are posting, what the skill sets are, and you should be kind of crafting your let's say pathway in your education to get that job. I talked to a lot of applicants, particularly BMEs, and you know what they would want and maybe what their skill sets they have don't align. And it's not that they don't have a good skill set. It's just we haven't taken the time to sit down and say, this is the job I want. I want to work in this industry. Do I have those parts? So it's just aligning those needs with what your desires are. If you take time to do that now, it's going to really pay off in the future. So I'd say those are kind of the two big things from my perspective that would certainly help. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think, yeah, you actually touched on something that I think is really important too, is that here we are in this time and we've had to all make some adjustments. And so I'm wondering, Michael, since you were just speaking about this, is there anything that you can share with us about just the way that your company has shifted to adjust to the pandemic so that, you know, the students are using their time now in a certain way, and how can they be better preparing given those changes?
So for the pandemic, our company itself, we've aligned kind of what we do internally. We've been strictly following whatever the state guidelines are to make those accommodations. We are very fortunate that we have a pretty big facility. So we were able to come back actually in building, and you can see now I'm actually in office. Everyone has their own office and they can come in and close the door and relax some of their protective equipment. But the nature of what we do is we have a lot of hardware that can't necessarily come out of the building and go. So we had to make any adjustments there, make people remote or flexible to kind of accommodate what we need. Particularly to students, what they could potentially do to adjust for that. I mean, there's opportunities, I would say anywhere, and being able to still be successful in their academics and still try to take on, you know, maybe new things in a different light. Those things are going to show forth. We understand that traditional things that we see on resumes that we might have seen in the past, everything kind of blew up in the last year and a half. And I'll say that one thing that has been promising, I haven't seen a drop in the quality of candidates for any of our applications. Like people are still doing awesome things. And I don't think the standard of education has dropped. Like people are still having great conversations, pushing forward. And I think just demonstrating that we're actually have a lot of tenacity and some resilience in what we're doing, which is good to see. So I'd say that, I mean, the best thing you could do is if you feel like you got knocked down, just get back up and keep going. That's, I mean, there's not much more than I can really say for that. So
That's a good motto for life in general, Michael. Thank you. And Lauren, I'm going to pass it back to you because I know you alluded to it a little bit before as well. Some of the plans for the summer maybe, or things that have had to change because of the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to share more insight on that. And quickly, I something that came to mind when both Michael and David were speaking. There's one thing that I think we've seen very significantly here is that while there are some students who were able to obtain internships last summer, there were also a great deal that were not able to do that or lost internships. And we're seeing that reflected in resumes. And so one thing I wanted to share with the students is that, you know, even if you feel you may not be as competitive as someone else who had an internship, a lot of times what you're learning in the classroom, the projects you're doing have a real world focus. And anytime you can share more about a project you completed in the classroom that is relevant, that will carry a lot of weight. And similarly, there are soft skills we're looking for that in some cases carry more weight than the technical skills. A lot of times, you know, we can teach certain tools or technologies, but there are soft skills that can't always be taught. And I think one thing that you have probably become an expert in at this point is being able to pivot and be flexible and adaptable. Your you know, academic environment got shifted upside down like a year ago. So being able to demonstrate the adaptability and flexibility, which is huge for citizens as we work within an agile framework, that would be a wonderful thing to talk about, as well as the resiliency. That's a huge thing, as Michael just noted. But as it relates to your question, Holly, we wasted no time shifting to a virtual internship and full-time program last year. We are fortunate enough that we have the infrastructure in place to support virtual onboarding and programming, albeit it definitely was at a higher volume than what we've ever experienced. So, we were, as an organization, already working remotely at some capacity. I personally only work 2 days a week in the office as it is, even prior to COVID. So we have a lot of tools in place to support collaboration. We're onboarding Microsoft Teams in the future, but we currently use things like WebEx, Slack, an internal messenger and screen sharing tool like Jabber. All of these things allowed our interns to be able to communicate very effectively with their teams. And one thing that I'm particularly proud of is that we collect feedback at the end of the internships and throughout the internships, as well as with our full-time new hires. And almost consistently, the interns and new hires were very pleased with their onboarding experience and their ability to have accessibility to their managers. So they don't feel that even though they're remote, they always have someone to tap into. They have a really supportive team around them. So certainly it would be better to be on site and to have access to people more frequently, but there hasn't been any glaring, challenges with our ability to provide the support that these students and rising professionals need to be successful and build a solid foundation.
That is great to hear. Thank you. That is such an important piece of having a successful internship. So thank you. And Dave, I'll pass it over to you. How have you at Bay Computers had to, make changes, or have you had to make changes?
Well, we were forced to because the state at one point required you to work remotely if you were able to. And we have all the technology to work remotely. And I could see that day coming. So we bought every person in the company a Facebook portal so that they would be able to communicate with each other as quickly and as effectively as possible. But I will say, like 2 or 3 weeks into everybody working from home, the productivity was fine the first couple of weeks, but it seemed to drop after that. So as soon as the state allowed us to work back in the office, we've come back. And of course, we've got all the protocols, and you can see I'm wearing. I got my mask even though I'm in my office, but I really feel like the engineering is a collaborative endeavor by nature, and even though virtual technology we have and it's helpful, there's nothing like sitting next to another engineer and with a whiteboard and designing things. So we really haven't been affected much because we've been in the office. The only thing I'll say is we just don't allow outside visitors here, but we've had very good success, and everybody's been safe, so to speak, here. So honestly, it's almost had no effect on us, and it's had very little effect on our customers in the sense that they still bring us really cool projects to work on.
Oh, that's great to hear. Isn't it funny how we all kind of go through those cycles of you're kind of wondering what's going to happen next, and then you get comfortable with it. So thank you. Just to shift gears a little bit as we think about, getting ready to get ourselves out there into the job market. I wondered if we could talk a little bit about some career pathways that students could take within each of your companies. Just, Michael, you alluded to it a little bit before, like now is a great time to be looking at those job descriptions and thinking about what you can be doing to fill your resume with those skills. Do you have any other advice for our students in that area?
Particularly for looking for positions available, or at my company, or what one specific?
Just getting ready, if you're looking for an entry-level job with Delsys and you're thinking,
Okay.
I really want to get my foot in that door, what are some of the things that we can do to stand out now?
Yeah, I would say you mentioned a little bit earlier about with how people have had to adapt, it gives you kind of the opportunity to you'll explore different ways that you might have approached projects before. Everything's kind of remote, and I think that trying to take that lens to how you approach job applications, and spending time to work on how you communicate what you've done. Oftentimes, there's actually a lot of great projects students have done in academia, and they don't necessarily shine on their resume because they just may have not highlighted what they've done in a good way. It'll end up being like a very like very terse bullet point, where if they kind of expand and kind of maybe take it to the like the resume people assistants that they have in like your career centers, those help a lot. What I usually advise students that are interested in the position is, if you take the position that you're applying to, look at what their requirements are, try to highlight those on the resume. And you don't have to do anything crazy like you see some people like just basically throw a whole bunch of keywords on there. I'll see some resumes that's like they'll put every software stack possible on their resume. That's not helpful, especially because I have no way to quantify how good you are at that thing. So what's good to see is if you have someone that's, let's say, I'll give you Delphis as an example. We hire a lot of full stack engineers, but also across the spectrum. We have different software platforms depending on the team you're looking for. If you can highlight in a project that you've done that said, hey, I designed X using this platform and I achieved this result, and you're showing a cause and effect in the tools you use to do it, that's going to pump out to me. And I'll even I highlight like the keywords like that. If they said on the job post, I need to know .NET, I need to know C++, I bold that in my bullet points, so it makes it really easy for me just to see on a resume. Not only did they know it, but I can actually see where they used it. Because if you just put at the top, oh, the skills I have, oh, I know Python. All right, well, where in Python on here did you do? I need to kind of give a gauge of the depth there. That really helps you stand out for software. For other positions like hardware, you can use the similar concepts. If you took, it's great if you list the courses you took. I can see that on your transcript. If you can show me a project where you illustrated a concept or something in the requirement for the job posting, you can kind of bring that language into there. It's very helpful for people reviewing your applications to then pick it up and make the case, we should interview this person. This is why.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's hard and we don't feel like we need to elaborate quite as much, but now is your chance, right? And Lauren, let's pass it over to you a little bit. Do you have any other advice that students can use right now as they're thinking about those entry level positions and getting noticed at Citizens?
Yes, absolutely. And to piggyback a little bit on what Michael said, I absolutely agree. I think oftentimes I will review resumes and I'll be able to see sort of a list of courses or a list of technologies. And it is really hard to determine how proficient or experienced somebody is in that by just, purely seeing that list on the resume. So what I typically love to see in terms of formatting is when a student is able to further discuss a few projects, whether they were academic or internship related, and be able to, within the scope of the job responsibilities, highlight the different tools or technologies they were using, bolding those technologies if possible, so I can really see how they got that tangible exposure. And that's really important to us, to be able to see how you've been able to utilize or gain exposure to those particular technologies. The other thing I think that's really key, and that I've seen a lot of, students are definitely getting creative in how they can take advantage of, having a little bit of downtime, not having an internship potentially, but didn't want to have that time go to waste. So I jotted down some notes here when Michael was talking. It just kind of came to me. So I saw a lot of people complete certifications online. So whether it was for AWS, or perhaps they attended a boot camp online, which provided them with, full stack development exposure, that carries a lot of weight for us. So we really enjoy seeing that. Similarly, we use technical assessments in our interview process. So one thing I highly encourage is, if you go onto HackerRank, which, that's an example of a tool that we use for assessments, they have free practice tests on the site that you can actually practice coding challenges. So if you can get out there and start practicing those, that'll be very helpful for you as you're looking to gain entry into an organization that maybe requires those types of technical challenges. And then finally, things like hackathons or other opportunities for you to kind of showcase your skills in action, those carry a lot of weight for us too. So whenever me in particular, I would say whenever I see things like a hackathon participation or even a teaching assistant role, something that you're able to kind of demonstrate your knowledge and be able to support others in their learning of a particular concept, those carry just as much weight to me as an on-site internship would hold.
Fantastic, thank you. And that just speaks so much to those students who's maybe weren't able to do those internships last year or wanted to and had it fall through. So thank you for that. And Dave, anything to add from your perspective, things that we can be doing as we're getting ready to start applying for those entry-level positions?
Yeah, our company, because we do contract design work for other companies, we could be designing and like almost anything. It could be we did work on an electron beam microscope. We do web apps that present data from electrocardiograms and defibrillators, that sort of thing. So we're I don't mean this in a I don't mean to use this term in a negative way. I'm looking for people who are geeks. I'm looking for people that engineering and technology is what interests them and what motivates them. When you see musicians playing, you say, oh, they're so into the music. I want to find people that are into engineering. And that's what we do. So all of the things that, Michael and Lauren have been mentioning about, it's great to have internships and we want to see you highlight these projects on your resume. It's just to show the fact that you are interested in these various technologies. Because I have to hire smart. We like to hire computer engineers because they have a pretty wide breadth of knowledge, although we do hire electrical engineers, computer scientists, and biomed folks. Because also, once you get a job, you may find that you like certain technologies better than the other. And we're very fortunate in being a small company that we've had computer engineers come in here thinking they wanted to do electronics, and then they have the opportunity to do a little firmware here, and they go, oh, you know what, I really like software better than I like electronics. And we're able to accommodate that in our company. So we really look for people that they didn't choose engineering because it was because of the money. By the way, you do get paid pretty well, but they chose it because it's what interests them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. And that passion is important no matter what you're doing, right? You got to do it every day. You got to like it. Along those same lines, as we think about this transition time for our students, can each of you, I know within each of your organizations, you have a real commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion. And I'm wondering if we can just ask, can you share a little bit about what that looks like at your organization with us? And maybe Michael, could we start with you at Delsys?
Sure, absolutely. I think what diversity looks like at Delsys is kind of indicative from the top down. We're a woman-owned company, and our CEO is actually she's an immigrant, she immigrated from another country, and I would say part of our goals is we really are out there looking for talent wherever it comes from, and part of making sure that happens is not only across our teams and our recruitment teams is that we have a really diverse set of skills and of experiences to kind of go and continue to find those people. And I think that really it really trickles up to what you see resulting in here. I'll give an example. Our research team is 45% women, which is, I would say, for a STEM job, not normal, particularly one that's has a lot of computer science aspects to it. And we have a lot of great scientists on the team and engineers. So I think continuing to see and cultivate people from all backgrounds and invest in people has really been kind of our mantra. And it's like if people have passion to do the work, kind of like Dave was saying, we find people that are just really they want to do a good job. They're excited about what they do. They come from everywhere, and I think being open to that has been really great for us, and it's something we're going to continue to always do, is because it's really foundational to who we are.
Great, thank you. And Lauren, I'll pass the question to you over at Citizens.
Absolutely. So I would say, diversity, I think, has always been pretty inherent to Citizens as a company, and we value and respect folks that come from a variety of backgrounds and perspectives, and look to create a workforce that's very diverse in the way in thought and background. So we do a number of things internally to support that. I would say one of the things that I always enjoy talking about with students is a business resource group. So just like you have, you know, various clubs on campus that I'm sure you're involved in, we have affinity groups here essentially that are aligned to a specific diversity category. So things like females, people of color, people with disabilities, rising professionals, I'm forgetting what, veterans. So these groups are really active in the local community, which I have had the chance to take part in myself and I really enjoy. But additionally, they also have a recruiting component. So we have what we call a high touch referral program in place. So essentially, any candidate that is referred by a business resource group is prioritized, and it allows us to continue to bring diverse talent into the organization in a number of different areas. Certainly technology, we're doing a lot within that scope right now. We're very focused on ensuring that we're bringing in diverse candidates with a particular focus on people of color and female. And to that end, we have a number of partnerships. We are now national partners of Girls Who Code, the National Society of Black Engineers, and countless others, to be quite honest. So we're excited about all these different avenues for attracting this type of talent. And then additionally, as it relates to the community, I also want to quickly share some quick highlights from what we were able to do or kind of continuing to do over the course of the next few years. So we actually invested $10 million to drive social equity and economic advancement in underserved communities. And those funds are going to support a couple of different things. So grants and charitable support, and really it's towards minority and minority-owned small businesses. We're also doing a lot with financing for capital for small businesses, as well as housing and other development in predominantly underserved communities. And then finally, we are making donations to nonprofit organizations that can provide education and workforce development opportunities. And so our kind of core organizations we've been working with are the Posse Foundation, National Urban League, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So those are some things that kind of came out of some of the social, justice issues we've seen over the past year or so. And those are multi-year and very multifaceted partnerships. So I'm really excited about the work we can do in that space.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Yeah, I know you're always sending us information about, one thing or another that is just kind of a trailblazer. So thank you for that. And Dave, we'll pass it back to you. I mean, it's hard to follow up after a Citizens Bank, but Dave, we know you're doing.
Yeah, I got to say, my company hasn't donated $10 million to any effort. I have to say that. No, I think what I'll say to the students is that part of this, concern is solved by the mere field that you've chosen. God sprinkled the world with people who have the ability to be engineers, pretty much equally among every ethnic group and minority and sexual persuasion. But he didn't make too many of them. So the number of people who are capable of being engineers is pretty small. And as a result, the demand is really high. And your employer is not going to look at the color of your skin. He wants to know if you can be an engineer. And so I think that you're in a fortunate, for those people who are in unrepresented communities, I think the engineering world is more representative than many, just for that reason. So, my company in particular, I've always been concerned about the lack of diversity in engineering. There's certainly tons and tons of international and different ethnicities, but certainly underrepresented in the Black and women communities. And in the past, we've gone to high school career fairs to try to encourage, people that maybe didn't think about engineering to get into engineering. And so we recognize that, some of these opportunities are viewed differently depending on where you come from. We're certainly have done some things in the past to help like the Society of Women Engineers and the National Society of Black Engineers. But I think the fundamental thing is that due to the scarcity of people who are capable of being engineers, you're really going to be evaluated on your abilities.
Yeah, and you know what, Dave, I like what you mentioned there about just making sure that you're out there and you're making it known that you can do this. Anyone can do this, and so that opportunity is there for everyone. So appreciate that. And looking forward, we have about, looks like we're about 15 minutes to go. So maybe we'll have one more question for our panelists. And I'm wondering if you have, so this is kind of a generic question, but we've all touched on it a little bit. And I know that our group of students who are here today are here because they're interested and they want to know what they can do as a next step. So we're wondering if you have had someone or some group that helped you get where you were, and if you have advice for others who are on this call of how to network in that way. And Lauren, I'll start with you because you just mentioned that business resource groups within Citizens being, kind of if you are recommended by someone within one of those groups, then you're on the fast track, shall we say? I don't know how to. So we're just wondering if you have advice for our students today about how do we do that? Like it sounds great. How do we start?
So we have a really good mentoring program in place for people that get here. But one thing we kind of lack is developing this mentoring program for people outside of Citizens who want to gain some insight into the culture and opportunities. So we're working on building that. And I think that will be something we're going to roll out to our various campuses to be able to share how you can build these connections in a meaningful way. I would say for students who are interested in utilizing a tool like LinkedIn, that tends to be very valuable. And forgive me, I haven't done this in a little bit, so maybe I'm wrong on how this works. But I remember when I used to work in a career center in a college, I would often tell students to go on LinkedIn and be able to utilize the alumni tool, which would allow you to see if there are any alums at certain companies you're interested in. So having that affiliation, perhaps, being able to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, I noticed you went to URI, I'm currently a student here and your career path seems really interesting to me. And I would, certainly love to chat at your convenience on, how I could potentially grow into that similar role or develop a similar career path. And so you're approaching it from a standpoint as, you're looking to learn, as opposed to saying, hey, I need an internship or a job, please help me. And I think generally people like to talk about themselves. So you may find that there is an opportunity for you to hear from somebody, and you won't hear from everyone, but if you are able to reach out on LinkedIn and get to know some people that could vouch for you and your skills, and we see those referrals come through all the time, it definitely is helpful. Similarly, I would say anytime you can go to an event like the event occurring this evening, or any networking event where you can gain a contact with somebody at an organization, particularly a manager or somebody in the business, that will also help you, give you the chance to build a connection and potentially work your way into the organization based on your skills and experience.
Thank you too. And a shameless plug for the URI mentorship platform that's rolled out this year. So any alum in the community are getting, they're getting invited to the platform as well. So we're trying to build that for our students and our soon to be graduates as well. So
Nice.
Another great way to connect. And let's say, Michael, how about yourself? Do you have any tidbits for us?
Sure. Forgive me if there's anything repetitious from what was just said. I was disconnected for like a minute or two, so I missed the bulk of.
I'm glad you came back. We saw you leave, but
Yeah. So sorry if there's a repeat. I'd agree with the kind of seeking out mentors, particularly in the fields that you're looking to get into, because they can really help give you some insight into what you do and give you a little bit of a critique of where you are and where you stand, and help you kind of develop your goals and kind of give you that, not necessarily a reality check, but when you're doing it at an interview level, you're probably not going to get that personal feedback, let's say, of where of what you really need to do to get to that job. So if you're reaching out early, particularly to people like, if like I'm a recruiter for Delsys, this is what I do. If you email me informally and I say, hey, can we have a conversation about I'm looking for jobs, how do I do this in the future? I mean, I'm going to try to carve out my time to help. And I'd say that that's, probably pretty prevalent in a lot of places. People, one, like you said, they love to talk about themselves. So they're, if you say, how did you get there? They'll probably spend some time actually doing that. Yeah, and I would say probably just reinforcing what I had before. You have a lot of the information's out there to kind of get to where you need to go. It's really just taking the time and going through it and figuring that out. So, but finding people that are willing to take that time to talk to you and invest, that certainly helps. So.
Thank you. Yeah, and it sounds like using those human skills or those soft skills that we always talk about, and just showing that you can take that initiative is helpful. And last but not least, Dave, do you have anything that you can add to this conversation, just to give us any advice?
No, I think the students have heard a number of times that you shouldn't be shy about talking to people and asking things of them. People look back on their time, and like I still remember how I felt looking for jobs, and it was very uncomfortable. And so as a result, I'm willing to help people who are looking for jobs. So you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. The worst thing that can happen is somebody says no, and that's not catastrophic. But the other thing I would say, you talk about advice. A lot of what I've learned is from other people, not just to get a job, but once you get a job, when you're interviewing, I'm just reminding you that they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them. And if you look at this potential employer and there's nobody on their staff that seems excited about their job or that knows a ton of stuff that you could learn from, then maybe you should be looking at another company. If because to me, learning from other people is how you get better. And if you don't see anybody there that seems like you're really going to learn from, that may be telling you to look somewhere else.
And that's very true. Yeah, good point. We've got a little bit of time left, but we've got some questions. I'm so excited. We've got some questions coming in the chat. Lisa, do you want to take those, or do you want me to? I can.
Sure, I can jump in. The first question comes from Patricia, and she is asking Michael, does Delsys offer a mentorship program?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no formal definition of a mentorship program, and we're not gonna. I know some places I've worked. I actually was active duty military a while, where they would like formally assign you mentors. I'd say that those mentorship relationships are something that's actually similar to what Dave was talking about. Is you finding people that can teach you or help you find and grow in your ways. And obviously, we're going to invest in employees and try to mentor and grow them any way we can. But it's great when those things happen organically. The relationship are there because like I picked to work at Delsys. I ended up doing my PhD with them because of the senior scientists that were here. I saw that they had the skills and the traits that I wanted to learn how to do. And so I was like, the only way I'm going to do it is if I'm here and I learned that. And that was kind of representative of what happened. Is like, hey, I could spend as much time as I can with these people, and over that there we kind of grew that mentorship mentee relationship there. And I would say that that's really the best way, and that's foundational to our company. Is we I think actually we made a Twitter post pretty recently, our CEO. This is really foundational to our founders' philosophy of just investing and mentoring people. So if you want to kind of get some insight into how we think about that internally to the company, go to our Twitter page, or our Twitter post. It's probably like 2-3 days ago, and she had a comment about that. And that's yeah, it's definitely a part of our culture here, very much so.
All right, the next question comes from Mackenzie, and it's about the question of the traditional, like, tell me where you see yourself in 10 years. She is wondering if your predictions, Dave, Lauren, and Michael, of where you'd be in X number of years when you started initially in your career have panned out the way that you've expected.
I can speak to that. I went to undergraduate engineering school, and I promised, and I told all my friends I would never go to school again because it was so much effort. And then I eventually went back to school for like 10 years and got a PhD. I thought that I would, move up in a bigger company, and then I got really interested in small companies, and then I got laid off and I started my own company, which was not something I thought I was going to do. But when you have 2 kids at the time and 1 on the way and you have to feed them, you figure a way of starting a business. So what I mean to say is this: did I have plans? Yeah, I always had a plan. Did they always go according to plan? No, nothing goes according to plan. But if you don't have a plan, you won't end up anywhere.
Lauren and Michael, did you want to jump in on that as well?
Yeah, I'm happy to take it from the recruiter point of view. I mean, I would say in terms of my own path, I don't think I expected myself to be in recruiting. Actually, I went to school for marketing, and although it's not far off, you know, from that type of you know, an interest in this, I didn't think I'd be here, but I love it, and I'm happy I am. But as it relates to the question, you know, because I'll be honest, we do ask that question here at Citizens. We ask about, you know, where you are hoping to be in 5 years. And I can say, you know, we don't expect there to be, you know, students who are going to, you know, want to stay at the same company for years and years and years. So really the reason why we particularly like that question is because we want to even make sure that at a minimum, there would be potential for the individual to potentially grow a career with us. So we just like to know, you know, what motivates you and drives you. We have so many internal opportunities that it's really hard to do bad in this question for us, because you know, really what we're looking for are just people that are indicating a desire to learn, a desire to grow, to become an expert in a particular field perhaps, or to even grow into new different areas. So really for us, it's just getting a sense that you're truly invested in, let's say, software engineering, and that, you know, we feel like this would be a great path for you for the future. We do certainly have students who are very honest with us and tell us that, you know, they're using this opportunity as a stepping stone to get somewhere else. Believe it or not, people can be very honest about that. And so in that case, you know, we may then, you know, think that if a student is looking for this to be just a propeller to get to a different company or to get to a very, very different type of role, then we may say, okay, there might not be a long-term fit there, and there may not be a good fit in general. But, you know, really what most students tend to say when they answer this question is, I want to grow with the company, I want to learn, I want to develop my skills further, I want to maybe mentor, you know, younger students down the line like myself. So I think for us, that's kind of what we're looking for, if that kind of helps you frame that question in a different way.
Yeah, I can add to that too. So actually, I took a class at URI. I think it was scientific writing. I forget the gentleman that taught it. But one of the activities was kind of an introduction to long-term planning and creating different SMART goals. And in that project, I kind of outlaid what I wanted to do with my career for the next 5 years. And I'd say that, you know, with that, I'd say I'm pretty happy with the results that I've had there. And like similar to what Dave said, if you don't have a plan, you know, you'll achieve something. But it's probably not what you're looking for. So I think kind of laying out on paper, not necessarily what I want to do, but things I want to develop that are actionable. Like I want to develop this skill set. I want to, you know, work towards working there. Really set me up to kind of push there. And what you'll find is that some things actually may happen a lot sooner, and you can adjust those goals and say, all right, what's next? And some things may take longer, and you got to flex a little bit and see, you know, what opportunities are there. But I think what's important for me in the decisions that I made personally is I always want to be in a position where I have a next step and I can always grow. If I'm not growing personally, I'm probably not going to be happy with where I'm at. So I'm always kind of looking for like what is going to push the boundaries for just not myself, but also like the team that I'm working on. So having kind of going back to the previous question too, having mentors in there too is a great way to help refine that idea of not only what your personal goals are, but sometimes you have trouble seeing like, hey, are these realistic? And having that feedback, and especially with people that have those experiences, to say like, yeah, that is achievable in whatever time frame, or maybe they can be the ones that help you develop achieve those goals too. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next question comes from, I believe it's Davette. Would employers be more interested in employees who have networks that would potentially help the company to expand and improve? If yes, what would be the best way for the employee or people who are applying to the company to deliver the potentials? If this is more about the employee, if the employee has valuable information or resources and would like the company to collaborate with them.
Not quite. I think I'm in the same position that Lauren and Michael are in, where I'm not quite sure how to answer that question.
I don't know if I understand it. I'm so sorry.
I don't know if the student feels that they have an idea that could turn into a product or something like that, but that is something that, you know, would be better directed towards entrepreneurship programs and financing people and that sort of thing.
Okay, I think inherent in the question, the way I'm reading it, is if they already have kind of network connections to building relationships and things like that. So it could be related to new products. So. Okay.
Yeah, I could say it depends on what you're kind of going for. I would say that, you know, if you've demonstrated the ability to build good relationships with people, and you're applying for, say, our support engineers roles, that could be something you could leverage and say, you know, these are something I could demonstrate that would help me in this role in sales, support, whatever it might be. If it's specifically just trying to make some arrangement, I wouldn't necessarily take it from a job recruitment standpoint. I mean, if you have something of value and you want to make a pitch, you know, contact the appropriate person at the company to try to make that proposition, let's say. So.
Okay, Holly, we had a question for Lauren, but she has answered it in the chat for Robert about location. So I'm not sure if anyone else has a question or if you have anything else on your end, Holly.
No, I think if we've gotten through all of our student questions, that's great. We are just about at 1 o'clock. So I wanted to just take a minute to thank all of you for coming. Thank you to our students who came, and a lot of familiar faces. I've seen you on other calls this week. So it's awesome to see your level of investment, and we thank you very much for that. Still one more day of events to go after this. So don't forget about the Friday events, as well as tonight. And to our panelists, thank you to Lauren and to Dave and to Michael. We so appreciate you being here and taking this time with us. And thank you to my team, to Lisa and Christy and Tammy as well. Thank you so much. For any students who might have questions after we've already, hung up, feel free to just reach out to myself or to Lisa, anyone really at URI, and we'll help get you in contact with the folks that you wanted to talk to. And again, thank you so much. Hope you all have